Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Standing Tall with Gloria Johnson podcast. I am so excited today to be with Chris Haley and Bill Haley Jr., who are grandson, grandnephew of Alex Haley, the author of Roots. And it's so timely, I think, that we have this conversation. We have the 50th anniversary of Roots coming up. We have just this situation in this country with the rise and increase in racism, in addition to just sort of an approval. It used to be, when I was growing up, it was shameful to be racist. Mm-hmm. And today, racists proudly march on the 4th of July on our Capitol, hundreds of them, and openly support our president and things like that. And I think that it's time to shame these people back under the rocks from whence we came. So I want to talk about that a little bit, but just appreciate you both so much for coming on and having this conversation. So we can just start, maybe start with you, Chris, and tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, I am the Director of Research, Education, and Outreach, and the study of the legacy of slavery in Maryland at the Maryland State Archives, which is where I am today. This is my office, and in Annapolis, Maryland, which one could say ironically or spiritually, karmically, is kind of amazing, because I am literally only about not even a mile from City Dock, where there's a memorial to my uncle and Bill's grandfather, which is the Alex Haley Kinte Memorial, which features my uncle with an open book, as if he's telling a story to 3 school-age children of different nationalities, which was a specific goal at foot, because it was not to exclude anyone. It's about including anyone and everyone of all nationalities, and also to reinforce the idea that we should tell our stories to other generations and not just keep them to ourselves. So that's my immediate background. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then Bill.
Well, I am Chris's cousin, and of course the 9th generation descendant of Kunta Kinte, and I am currently 3,000 miles on the other side, on the left coast in sunny California. I am currently the co-founder of a nonprofit called the Inherited Roots Project, which was created several years ago in anticipation of the 50th anniversary of Roots, and to celebrate the legacy of my grandfather's work, and in really the relationship between my grandfather and his close friend, Ibu Manga, who actually was the African who helped him decipher the Mandinkan words in our oral history, which literally led us to the village of Jufere. And that is literally how we found the full name of Kunta Kinte. Our oral history always had the Kinte name in it, but we didn't know the rest of the story until Ibu helped us connect the last mile. So I'm co-founder along with his son, Malik, and our goal is to spread the legacy of Roots and also continue that journey and joining between the diaspora here in the U.S. and in the Gambia and in the wider African continent. So that's what I'm currently doing. And before that, I made magic with Mickey Mouse at Disneyland. So I spent 12 years there helping families have fabulous times and create their own magic. But I really sort of decided that it was time for me to retire and devote myself to our own family legacy.
One of the things that I think about, I was looking back at the time when Roots, the novel, came out, and then when the miniseries came out, because the thing that I remember the most at that time was I remember my whole family sitting down and watching every one of that miniseries. I mean, we watched every night together as a family. And so I called other friends of mine, and I called friends of mine who are a little bit younger than me, a little bit older than me, and live in other states than me, grew up in a rural county where they had a farm, and asked, is that what your family did? Was it just, I know it was my family, but they go, no, that's exactly what our family did too. And so, I just remember we watched it together. We talked about it over dinner. We talked about it for a while. It was just so eye-opening to so many. And then we were curious, okay, how many people watched that miniseries? And went back and looked, and it looks like around 130 million people, which at the time was more than half of the citizenry in 1977.
Yes.
And that's just mind-blowing. Today we have so many channels, so many ways. But as I was talking to Asher, my young producer here, I said, picture it. There were 3 channels. There was 3 networks to watch news, and there were everybody. If you had your TV on, you were watching one of 3 channels. And that is how so many people at one time saw, maybe for the first time for them, what it looked like, and how horrible slavery was, and the cruelty that was involved, and the lives that were hurt. And I think that's one of the reasons it was so powerful for so many. But can you speak to what it meant to you at that time?
Well, I would say for me, I think from a historical perspective, which is like looking at the history, not the person of it, but the history of it, I think it was very, I think it was very, for want of a better, tremulous time, which is to say, what is this going to be like? What is it going to be like when people really, really are faced with what history of enslavement was for Black people? Because even though there was much talk, because this is the late 70s, so we're after, let's say, the civil rights movement has really been at its apex, but also there's high energy comedies such as The Jeffersons, such as Sanford and Son, such as Good Times, and there's also blaxploitation movies. So there's sort of exaggerated, highlighted manic behavior of African Americans at that time, which were prominently shown. So the sense I got was that this is going to be a real depiction of slavery and also what came after for this particular family. So it was very much, I'd say, I was unsure of what to expect and how people would react to it. I think I was afraid that people would be really, really upset, which is to say white people would be really, really upset and Black people would be really, really upset, because it was a reminder of just how bad it was. And me being just in school myself, I mean, still a kid in school, then you're always about your peer pressure and what people will say to me, what people will think about me, how will things be tomorrow? So there was definitely this moment of, outside of this is my family and what will people think differently of me and what I can or can't do because this is my family story, but also a heightened examination of what the discrimination against Black people was years ago, and how do we face this now? So there definitely was this. There's going to be a BR and an AR, before Roots and after Roots, and what is that going to look like?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a really interesting perspective that I hadn't thought about. But repercussions on family members of the author, but just in the Black community, what is that going to look like? Because the reality is, like here in Tennessee, we have a legislature that doesn't want us to give the full history of slavery, and they'll say it makes white people feel bad or feel guilty or whatever. And that's crazy as far as I'm concerned. We need to teach the real history, and there's no reason to feel guilty, but what there's reason to talk about factual history, what happened, so that we don't repeat it. Because right now, by trying to cover up this history and whitewash it, as I call it, by trying to make it look better than it was, I mean, I think we have some responsibility and onus as white people to acknowledge the facts about what happened, and still where we are today, as I felt we were making so much more progress, and now I feel like we are sliding back so far. So Bill, what was your thoughts at the time?
Well, similarly to Chris, I wasn't really sure sort of what to expect in terms of the miniseries itself, what it was going to look like. I, of course, understanding it's this story about my family history, but I couldn't imagine what it would look like on TV. Yeah. And now I was about 12 years old when Roots was broadcast, and I grew up in New York. So the interesting thing was, as Chris says, there's before Roots and after Roots. And what I remember was, growing up in New York City, in the Bronx, and, New York City is a city of immigrants. So I know I went to school with kids who, obviously were of African ancestry, but were from the Caribbean, they were Italian heritage, Jewish, Polish. So there was really this sort of hodgepodge of kids. And I just remember, the before Roots and the after Roots, I wasn't sure what I was going to get from my fellow classmates, but what I got was a lot of questions and curiosity, because Roots opened up this perspective of the Black experience that many of them had never even imagined, thought about Black people in terms of the history of us coming into this country, and on a larger scale of our humanity. So there was lots of curious questions, and yeah, there were some folks that were angry about different aspects of Roots, but what I found was people were utterly fascinated, not only about our history, our Black experience as a family, but then they were also motivated to know more about their own families. And I remember the flip side of it, though, the after Roots was, I was kind of flying under the radar as a student, but then of course, once all my teachers knew who my grandfather was and all that, then all of a sudden the expectations had been heightened about, sort of what they expected from me. So, yeah, so that was another side of it. But I just remember it overall, it being, a positive experience on one hand, but it was also very overwhelming. And Chris probably can speak to that as well, in that all of a sudden we were like the authorities that were to be the explainers of the Black experience. But, I wouldn't change any of that for the world. But it was, and I'm grateful for actually having that experience.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting that you mentioned that, because today I was talking to someone else for an earlier podcast, Reverend Harold Middlebrooks, who worked with Martin Luther King during the Civil Rights Movement. And he was saying, I guess he has his immediate family or parents, grandparents were from a certain town in Mississippi. And he said he got really interested after Roots. He got really interested in the genealogy. And when he was in Mississippi one time, stopped in the town that they were from and asked if he could find out about the Middlebrook family. And he said he was asked to leave when they asked, why do you want to know this? And he said, I am. And he said he was told to leave town. So you never know what you're going to get. But
yeah.
It's so interesting, because I remember that I was a freshman in high school, and we had conversations at school. I had conversations with I don't know any white people that were mad. It brought up so many questions and so many discussions in our history classes and our English classes, everywhere. It was just it's a fascinating to me to think that all of those people were engaged in the conversation at that time, because like I said, there were only 3 channels. And so more than half of America watched that together or had read it. And I don't know if we'll ever see something like that again because of all the different ways people get their information. But it was just really something to look back at the history and look back at those numbers. But which tells us why it was so important to so many. And I know that both of you are aware here in Knox County, where I am from, just this school year, a few months ago, Knox County Schools banned roots. And how did you guys hear about it?
How did I hear about it? Why do I not remember? It was in the news. I mean, it was definitely. I'm trying to think. What did I hear about it? It was social media, and it was probably. I don't know if it was Facebook or if it was Instagram. And so, of course, at first I thought, I know I've told Bill this before. I thought, oh, this is probably an old post of something that's already happened months ago, and people are just now promoting it. It's just as because I had checked, literally, I had checked some months ago, because I thought this has to have happened by now anyway. I literally thought that of all these books that they're banning, Roots must be one. I mean, how could they not ban Roots if they're going to ban things about African American history and blah, 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 slavery? Roots just has to be. And I think there are other places that have banned it, but nothing was written about it. So when I first saw it, I thought, oh, well, this must be one of those other places, and somebody found it, and now they posted it. And then I don't know what or how, maybe Bill contacted me. I feel like someone within the family, and probably would have been Bill, confirmed to me that, have you seen this? And I thought, well, yeah. Oh, so this is true. Because I don't remember it being broadcast nationally quickly. I think it was these different posts that were being shared very quickly.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it on the news, on national news, very quickly at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very interesting. It just was so shocking to me because Alex Haley lived here the last part of his life. And you talked about the statue. I haven't seen the statue in Maryland, but I want to see it because we have the statue here. Same thing. He's open up and he's reading the book. And it's huge. It's, I think 13 feet tall or something. And when my colleague, Rep. Justin Jones, was in Knoxville, I was like, we got to go see the statue. And so we went to see the statue, and Justin was able to crawl on it and sit on the book, to like sit on his lap. And it's such a great picture of you can actually climb around on the statue. And it's so welcoming for everybody. And I'm thinking, they've got a statue of children of Roots in Knoxville, and then they banned the book. And our bill that was passed that bans these books, it says that you can just take any line, and out of a book, and it doesn't matter what the context is. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how do you take a line out of a book without context? That's just dumb. The bill is stupid. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, if someone wanted to challenge the Bible, it would be removed from every school in Knox County, because the Bible can't stand up to that bill. Mm-hmm. And, I'm going to bring legislation to repeal the bill this time. I don't know if it'll pass or not. But I think when these folks come to understand that you passed a bill that would literally ban the Bible, which they think is so important in our schools, they want it there, then you're going to need to change the legislation. It's outrageous to me. But I thought it was so poignant that also at this time, it is we're headed into the 50th anniversary as this is happening.
It had to have been targeted. So we can only think that somebody was looking for it.
Yeah, that's possible. We have a group here, pretty large group of Moms for Liberty folks, and we've banned 123 books in Knox County. They have, but I think that all of those books would would actually, maybe most of the books in the library could be banned based on the bill that we have passed, as long as somebody wants to challenge them. But what you can say about all of the books that have been chosen, the vast majority have Black authors, brown authors, or LGBTQ authors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a fact. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. That's so true. I think I did alert you, Chris, because I got social media hits on it. And I was like, wait, what? And then I was just dumbfounded. One, because it's Tennessee. And my grandfather, your uncle, is a native son of Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And Roots was one of the first 10 designated books for the state. Yes. And the state museum has his Pulitzer Prize. I almost thought it was a joke, really. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I just absolutely couldn't believe it. And I'm saying, here we are, we're coming up and celebrating the 50th anniversary of Roots. The book has been sitting on bookshelves for almost 50 years. And so now is the time that you find something so offensive that it can't be read by anybody in a library. I just thought that was ridiculous. And I think that, when the momentum started picking up and people started realizing what that meant, I think that's when, you had the newspapers and the news stations locally picking it up. And I'm so grateful for your advocacy and everyone else in Tennessee, because you all really led the charge. I mean, we put out some press releases as well, but I think it was the people in the state that really led the charge and ultimately led to the superintendent repealing the banning of Roots. And I hope, as you said, you put up the legislation and it makes people think twice about what they're banning. So I want to thank the good people of Tennessee for coming to Roots' rescue, because I think that had that not happened, it might not have picked up the momentum that it had.
And this had bipartisan support as well. This is something that Republicans didn't agree with either. I know Lamar Alexander was a friend of Alex Haley's, and so he spoke out about it. Please revisit this. This is not okay. And so I'm glad they put it back. But the folks that I work with in the Tennessee legislature are so extreme. Mm-hmm. I could see them being bothered by a superintendent putting it back. And I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to make it worse in our next session. So we'll see. Hopefully, cooler heads will prevail. That is what
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you all have been working really hard on this 50th anniversary. And so it sounds like such a great event to me, and I want to attend the parts that I can. But can you tell me a little bit about what is planned for Roots 50th?
Sure. So we are having a 3-day, I call it a commemorative tour. It's a bus tour, but it's a commemorative tour. It's called Exploring Kunta Roots 50th. And we're doing 3 days of celebration. It's August 7th, 8th, and 9th. And the first day on August 7th is going to be in Annapolis. So anyone in the DMV area who wants to come by, as you were saying, Gloria, who had not yet seen the statue, the sculpture of my grandfather at the city dock, reading the book with the 3 kids where Kunta Kinte would have first stepped foot, will be able to experience that. So we're going to do a libation ceremony, and we're going to also have a symposium and celebration there as well. We're doing this in conjunction with the Banneker Douglas Tubman Museum, as well as the Kunta Kinte celebrations, the good folks who actually do the Kunta Kinte Festival every year, which is scheduled, I think, this year for September 26th. So that's going to be happening on day 1. And so we're going to kind of metaphorically follow Kunta's journey from Annapolis, where he landed off of the Lord Ligonier in shackles, was sold, and then we're going to travel up through on day 2 to the Fredericksburg area museum in Fredericksburg, Virginia, which actually has a very rich history of an education of slavery, particularly in Virginia, which obviously was ground zero for the transatlantic slavery movement, at least in the colonies as it spread out. So we're going to be doing that on day 2. It's very educational that way. And then day 3, we're going to find ourselves in Spotsylvania County, Virginia, which is where the Waller plantation was, where Kunta was essentially sold to the Waller family. And we're going to go in Spotsylvania and be at the John Wright Educational and Cultural Center. And we're going to be doing I believe there's going to be some screenings of Roots, and there's going to be a sort of gospel celebration, kind of going full circle, wrapping it up. I think they're calling it Joy Fest, but it's really going to be a gospel celebration, celebrating with joy and song. So it's kind of a full circle experience, starting in Annapolis, going to Fredericksburg, which essentially, other than, in addition to the museum and cultural parts, they're also going to sort of talk about genealogy. So folks that want to learn about how to look up in their genealogy online are going to get a great tutorial on how to do that as well. So it's a 3-day fest. If you can do all 3 days, we welcome you, but also know that if you find yourself in Annapolis and that's what fits for you, you're welcome there. If you're closer to Fredericksburg on day 2, come on by and experience it with us in Fredericksburg. And of course, if you're in Spotsylvania County on day 3, then please come on ahead and come with us and celebrate with joy and gospel in Spotsylvania on the 3rd day, which is going to be the 9th.
Wonderful. I mean, it just sounds so great. I'm gonna see what part. I think I can participate in the first day, and so I'm gonna try to do that. So see if I can't make it happen. I'm pretty sure that I can. So I don't know, Chris, do you have any more to say about the event?
No, I would just say that if you are going to be here for sure, then let us know as soon as you can.
Yeah.
Only because then I would love to get some of the other legislators around here to meet you, so you guys can talk shop, so to speak.
Well, I'm committing right now. I'm doing it. I'll be there.
Oh, okay, good. Then I will start to put out feelers to make sure, because I know we're going to invite people from the legislature and from the local government, because they really have always been very, very, very supportive.
Yeah.
The mayor before, the new mayor, the Anne Arundel County Council, which is the county in which Annapolis, and also the Annapolis City Council have always been very, very supportive, as well as the people who are the, let's say, the active parts of the community have always been very much in favor of anything and everything that happens is of a social justice means that is centered around the city dock, is centered around our uncle and grandfather's memorial. So it's very much an active and a known site where these type events are celebrated. So to have you there would be a celebration as well. And along the lines of what Bill was saying, congratulations to you again, for you and the Justins, for all you have done, for all you have stood for, because you remind us that it is from, or can be from, the bottom up is how things can change, and not from the top down. Because right now, from the top is not that great right now. So
Not at all.
but from the bottom up can make things happen. At the more accessible level, things can happen if you just really put the pressure on those legislators who have a different mindset, because ultimately they are hired by the people and they can be fired by the people. So it's very, very encouraging that you had a bipartisan support for having Roots put back on the shelves. And I can only hope that in some way, those who probably would have been okay with it being banned were shamed into not voicing that. Because
Right.
at the very least, now we know it exists. Now we need to shame them back into hiding it again, because other people have shamelessly boasted that they're okay with things being quote unquote whitewashed again.
Yeah, and that's the thing that to me that is so important is, like he talks about, the statute, the storytelling. The storytelling is just, and it's more important now than ever that they're trying to silence teachers in their classrooms and things like this. And I mean, I already know that in my education, I didn't learn about Black Wall Street in school. You know, I learned about that later. There are already things that we're not telling kids. You know, the thing I get angry about sometimes is all the history that we didn't talk about and that they didn't tell me about. And we're actually doing worse now than probably, because I remember vividly as an elementary school child, and I was in elementary school in Jackson, Mississippi, and I vividly remember learning about slavery and seeing the picture. There's one particular picture they show all the time, and it's of an older gentleman with the welts on his back. And, you know, that had a huge effect on me as a child. Didn't make me hate myself, as some of my colleagues will say. It didn't, you know, the nonsense that some of my colleagues talk about, oh, well, a 7-year-old had to get on antidepressants because it made her so sad. Well, we find out that, first of all, that was a lie. It never happened. That woman's child didn't even go to public school. So just first take that out of your mouth, because that's not even really happening. But, you know, I learned about how destructive and wrong and inhumane slavery was, or the Holocaust. But I can't say that our kids today are learning that. And we have a, quote, divisive concept bill in Tennessee that says in K-12, we can't talk about anything that's going to make someone feel bad. Really? I mean, hello, we all should feel bad about some of the things that we have done in history. That's just a fact. And so that's very strange to me. And it's hard to imagine that that is something that we are doing or saying. And then, but what Tennessee did, we took it an extra step and we said no divisive concepts in college. And I'm like, you go to college to talk about divisive concepts. I mean, that's why I went. I want to find out about all the things that I don't know about, that we didn't talk about. And yeah, they may be tough subjects, but you discuss and you hash it out. And this is, to me, that's how we learn. But now they have chilled the language of college professors in Tennessee. It's outrageous. It is outrageous. We've had some professors fired. One just won $2 million for being fired, and I'm pretty thrilled about that, because we still have our First Amendment rights. If we don't do something fast, we're not going to have them for long, but we still have them now. So, I mean, one of you is in California, one of you is in Maryland. It's different where you are, but what concerns you the most about what is happening now with this sort of march? For me, it's this march towards fascism. And I think fascism in the United States comes through racism and dehumanizing our immigrant neighbors or our Black communities, even women, you know. But what does it feel like to you guys who are maybe in a blue state?
Well, I feel like it's, you know, it's almost astounding. It feels like a rollback that I never would have expected. I mean, my mother, who is in her 80s, she said to me, you know, not fairly recently, when all this started happening, she said, I would have never have thought in my lifetime that I would experience the same sort of feeling that she did as a little girl. I mean, even though she grew up in, you know, we have family in the South, but she grew up in New York, but it was still that Jim Crow type era, that feeling, the segregation, all of that. She grew up in the middle of all that. And she said, I would have never thought that I would experience that. And I know exactly what she's talking about, in the sense that that's the part that frightens me, is that, one, there's sort of the lack of discussion and education, as you were saying, Gloria, particularly amongst our young people. Like, I mean, when I went to school, you went to school as kids. I mean, I was taught civics. I knew how the government worked. You know, that's not taught so much anymore. And I think that also the speed of information, the speed of media, and the way we consume information now, in some cases, it has a value in terms of getting things out faster, but it also makes it more difficult for us to kind of take a beat and slow down and understand the depth and the context of what we're learning. So I think we can, you know, I think it's a challenge to sort of re-educate the newer generations about how this has happened before, and what we're watching is not something that hasn't happened before, but we certainly don't want it to happen again. We need to sort of figure out a way to sort of speak to them, to paraphrase something Malcolm X would say, speak the language they speak. So meaning giving them the information in the ways that they can absorb and consume it, but yes, understand the value and the depth of what humanity is, and looking at people beyond the color of skin, which seems to be the way that this country was formed and based, and look at people in their humanity, and look and be careful about the language that we use that dehumanizes and otherizes people.
Yes.
I think if we can start to sort of think about and be careful about the words that we're using and present information, maybe in more bite-sized chunks, you know, we can get people curious enough so that they want to sort of understand history in more longer form ways and have discussions, you know, and get back to reading books or having maybe more collaborative atmospheres of looking at history. Because I think that's kind of what's missing. We're moving so fast. We're missing the essence of what made us great, or what can make us great, and what binds us all together as people and as human beings, which is the very reason that my grandfather wrote Roots. It was telling our family story, yes, but it's a common story of our humanity, the journeys, the triumphs, the tribulations, and bringing us together. And that's what we need to get back to, and move away a bit from this divisive way of looking at things that can only be, you know, either A or B. It doesn't have to be a binary choice all the time. It can be a collective choice, right? It doesn't hurt to learn about the stuff that happened before.
Yeah, absolutely. When you talk about civics, my colleagues in the legislature will talk about, we've got to get back to teaching civics. But what they're really saying is more of a white nationalism. That's really what they're talking about, their version of how things should be. And the civics that you're referring to, and the way I think of civics, is just how to be a part of your community. And, you know, being from East Tennessee and living in Knoxville almost all my life, I feel like, you know, in my neighborhood, growing up, whichever community I lived in East Tennessee and Knoxville, I felt like my neighbors just really wanted to help each other out. They cared about each other. They didn't care where you worshiped. They didn't care what color your skin was if you were an immigrant. None of that mattered. You just all pitched in, and we were all part of the community. But now they are working so hard, like you said, to divide us and to see the other as not human. So you can do almost anything to someone if you can make them less than human. And it is incredibly scary. So, Chris, what are you seeing?
Well, I think what's very disappointing about what the trend has been since 45 came into office, just to be real,
Yes.
since 45 came into office and then we got back in the office, is that it's hypocrisy. So there's I would hope, but it's not going to be, that there should be an admittance of hypocrisy. Yes, I'm okay with being a hypocrite. And that's why I say I don't want to make my children feel bad, but I'm okay if your children feel bad, because that's what it comes down to. When people talk about LGBTQIA plus individuals and how it shouldn't be, my children shouldn't have to deal with your child at a young age deciding or thinking that they're in the wrong body. And then I said this to one of my friends. I said, well, okay, But what about if that parent is okay if their child does that? And it was just pause, because that's not the point, what the other person thinks. It's the point of what I think and what I think is right. And if you who don't agree, and if the people who are the parents of those children don't agree, that's wrong. Then they're wrong. I'm the parent who's right. I'm the point of view who's right. And that's the hypocrisy of it. And that's what's so disappointing, that one part of the across the aisle seems to literally be okay with that. Now, again, I'm preaching to our choir of three, but also because I am a liberal person, that I feel it's unfortunate, because it makes us who want to be more open and more giving and more understanding want not to be that anymore, because we start to inevitably go toward, this isn't winning for us. This isn't gaining for us, being open-minded to hear your point of view or to hear your feelings. It's not getting us equality. It's not getting you to understand or to accept diversity, which includes you. It's getting you to push further away for me and for those people who I identify with or who I want to champion, which makes me not want to be me anymore. It makes me not want to be open. It makes me not want to be caring. It makes me not want to be kind. It makes me want to be like you are. So it pushes the divisiveness that they want to say that we're behind. It's like, I forget what the quote is, that I'm not racist because I don't hate you because you're racist. I hate you because you hate me because I'm Black. Or it's something else that people have said, why are you so worried if everybody likes you? You don't like everybody. And that becomes the type of situation where if we just decide to go into our silos, then there'll be nothing shared with anybody. And there'll be nothing that any of us can even make the effort to reach across the aisle to say, well, don't we have some things in common? And we don't want to even admit to that anymore. And that's what seems to be the awful reality of what's being promoted so much. And again, it's still a minority. We have to remind ourselves it's a minority of people who, let's say, at least openly think that way.
Yes.
Openly speak that way, and hopefully believe that way.
Yeah. Sometimes if you're in East Tennessee or in a really red state, it feels like it's more than it is. But I do remind other people, you guys, this is not even the majority of Republicans that feel that way. You know, it's just, but those people who do feel this way are very loud and very vocal and are amplified in our lives in a lot of ways on social media. But it just comes back to respecting the human dignity of everyone. And we are more alike than we are different. You know, it doesn't matter what color you are or what party you in. We all want our kids to do well in school. We all want our families to be able to go to the doctor when they're sick and to earn a good wage to be able to support your family. You know, I mean, that's who we are. But what some folks have decided is, well, we can't win elections that way. So the only way we can win is by dividing folks and making them hate other groups and making them think that someone else is getting something that they are not, you know, or you're getting something I should have had, you know, that type of situation. I see that so often with the current administration. When I kind of really try to break down someone I know who really supports this administration, I often find that maybe they're not where they are or want to be in life. And so they can easily blame one of these others for the fact that they don't have what they feel like that they should have. And in it, you know, that propaganda just really gets to certain people and then gets them angry so that they can divide us. Really, some of us that should be fighting on the same side, you know, because we all really do want the same things. I really I wish, you know, more people could get involved with Roots 50. I hope that they do. because I feel like what it did for the country back in 77, it could do again. I think, it really, really could do that, because some people were too far removed from those stories. And we know how important telling those stories are. And I don't know, I always hope that when somebody bans a book, that just makes a million people go out and buy it. So it makes me go out and buy it.
We hope so.
Yeah, but I mean, just thank you all so much for all the work that you do and that you continue to do. And I want to talk about your website, which is roots50.org, right?
Right. That's the website. If you're interested in knowing and getting more information or registering for any of the segments of the tour, you just go to roots50.org. It has all the information there. There's, if you have a question, you can just simply submit your question in our comments box as well. And our Roots 50 team will get right back to you with any questions you have. So, but everything about the tour, the experience, you'll find at roots50.org.
Okay, wonderful. I want people to know where they can go and to find out more about it, because I've been at the website several times, and like I said, I've decided I'll get on there and register for the first day, because I'm going to do it. And really looking forward to it. I want to compare the statue in Maryland to the statue here in Knoxville. And, anybody who's in Knoxville, you really should. This statue is just absolutely amazing. It's just beautiful, and it's massive, and it is just a great little park, and it's a great place to visit. So I would love to see the education and just people rally around that story, just like they did 50 years ago. And it really opened America's eyes to what slavery looked like. Whether, depending on where you went to school and all that, you may not get the full picture, or you may not have gotten the full picture, but that really did help. And I feel even worse today about the picture that students are getting in schools in certain states across this country because of laws that are whitewashing history. So I want to give each of you a couple of minutes to sum up and say what you're thinking, what you want to let people know.
I will say, just as briefly as I can, some of the things we've talked about today have been really great about roots and all, but I know from your point of view, from what you're experiencing and your situation in a very red state is challenging at times. And I will tell you that I loved being there. I guess it was 2 years ago we were there, Bill, for the celebration of your grandfather, my uncle, for the
Yes.
Museum Appalachian.
At the Appalachian Museum, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The year before there, I was there at the Bex County, or the Bex Museum, for their commemoration of roots as well. And I know it was home to my uncle, and I know in my own background, on my mother's side, Georgia is a part of my lineage, and I feel very good there. However, at the same time, it's a good that I feel like is couched in maybes. I'm good, but at any second, somebody may come out of the woodwork, so to speak, to say, you're what? You're this, you're that, the other. And you sort of you wonder about what you can say and what you should say. And what I remind people, whether or not they come to Roots 50 or not, any of that, is that the message of Roots is something that is beyond a 3-day festival. It's beyond a physical book or a physical miniseries. It's the reality that all families struggle at some time through challenges, and through the generations, they can survive. It doesn't mean that everything is going to make you feel good all the time. Sometimes it's those things that don't make you feel good, make you appreciate those things that allow you to feel better. Certainly, Black people who talk about slavery isn't because I feel really good that my great-grandfather was enslaved. I feel really good that Kizzy was raped. Boy, when I think about having a beer at night, I think, yay, Kizzy, that's not the reality of what some people imply. It's more about the pride of what people overcame to be where they are today. And that's what Roots is about for all nationalities and for all nations, which means beyond Black, white, but European, the 7 continents. And that's what I hope people will ultimately remember, because right now, we all have higher gas prices. We all are all of a sudden realizing measles is a thing again, because so many things are happening that for some reason have become politically based, which makes no sense. But it's not just affecting Black people or gay people, immigrants, it's affecting everybody. And if it's affecting everybody, then what's the point of view of othering people as if it just affects one person or one nationality or one person of a different orientation than you are? It doesn't make sense. And if anything, I feel like 45, 47 is reminding us of that some of the things that are being pushed don't make sense.
Yes. Thank you. Bill?
Amen, Chris. I don't know what more to add. Preach, Chris, preach. Here's what I will say. I'll take something you said at the very beginning of your comments. And, Roots is not just the story of my family, of African ancestry. It's the subtitle of Roots was a saga of an American family. And it's about our American journey, not only individually, but collectively. And when Chris and I were in Tennessee, in Eastern Tennessee a few years ago, we were at the Museum of Appalachia because my grandfather was being honored as a hero of Southern Appalachia because of his desire to learn and tell and share the stories of other people. He lived to do that. He wanted to learn. He said, once you learn about your own roots, about your own people, then you should go and learn about other people, learn about their stories, learn about their lives. Because in learning those things, you'll understand the commonalities that we all share. So if there's anything I would say is us celebrating Roots 50th is a milestone, yes, but we're sort of picking up the mantle, and this is the beginning of a journey. So, we're starting here in 2026 with Roots 50th, and our goal and our desire as a family is to honor the legacy of my grandfather by celebrating Roots each and every year, year after year, and inviting other families to share their own stories, learn their history, embrace other people's history, because in that way we'll see what our common humanity is, and that we're really not, despite the rhetoric and anything else, we all are so much alike. If you wear pants, you put your pants on one leg at a time. Sorry, there's no other way to do it. I mean, if you're able to eat normally, we all eat, we put food in our mouths. We drink the same way. So there's so much more that we have in common that's beyond the surface of how we look. Our humanity is our greatest asset. And so if there's anything I would say is let's get back and remember our common humanity. That's the message that I have. And that's what we want to celebrate, not only this year, but every year, year after year.
Well, thank you so much, because that's what it means to me. That's how I look at Roots. Just, I don't think it happens much anymore where a whole family sits down and watches something together for multiple nights in a row. There's something to be said for that, just being together and then talking about it out in the community, because that everybody else watched it just like you did. And so it's something like that can bring us together, and Roots can bring us together again. But we don't just explore our own families, but those families that might be different from us. And what does that look like? But also, where are the commonalities, like you say, because there are commonalities as well. And I would love a resurgence of just that feeling of community and shared experiences with all of us as we go through the same thing of paying more than we paid for gas and paying more than we can for groceries. And, affordable housing is a hot mess. We're all going through these things. Why can't we recognize that? And instead of working against each other, try to understand, try to walk in somebody else's shoes. To me, that's what was a lot of Roots was about, putting yourself in that position. What would that be like to have experienced that and trying to have an understanding of that. So just thank you guys so much. I'm so looking forward to coming to Annapolis and just appreciate you so much. And to everybody out there watching, thank you so much for tuning in. And please go to roots50.org to get more information, because you can still join in the festivities. If you're close by or not that far away, it's still something that you can do. I've been talking it up since I found out about it. And I just appreciate you all so much. And to everyone out there, thank you so much for tuning in to the Standing Tall podcast with Gloria Johnson. And thank you so much to my guests, Chris Haley and Bill Haley Jr. I really appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Gloria. We look forward to seeing you.
Yes, I can't wait.
Tennessee Ride.